What do you think of the battery-powered car, Mr. Ford? Electricity seems to be the wave of the future.
Not for automobiles, Mr. Edison. Batteries are too big and they have to be recharged too often. And steam is really out of the picture, too. No, sir. The gasoline engine is the only way to go.
Young man, you have it. Your car doesn't have to carry coal and water for steam, and you don't have to be near a place to recharge your batteries. Your unit carries its own fuel. Oh, keep at it, young man. Keep at it.
Henry, after we deliver this load of wood in Detroit, I want to drive over to Mr. Flower's machine shop, pick up that pump he repaired for me.
I bet I could have fixed that pump.
And how would you have done that? It had a big crack up the side. That's why it wouldn't work.
Yeah, I know. The crack lets air into the suction chamber. I would have heated the pump barrel on our forge, pulled the crack together with iron bands, and filled it with solder.
I can see you thought about it. But I don't think solder would hold, Henry. I'm sure Jim Flower will find another way.
Look, Pa! What's that?
Looks like some sort of engine. A steam engine.
It is! It's Mr. Redmond driving a steam engine on the road! I've never seen anything like that before. I'm gonna have a look at it.
Henry, what are you...
Hi, boys and girls.
And hello, everyone. Welcome to another Story Hour program. Say, Aunt Carol, did I hear the man in your preview say that they were going to deliver a load of wood in Detroit?
That's right, Uncle Dan.
And that boy's name was Henry?
Right again.
And he was interested in mechanical things?
Uh-huh.
Your story just wouldn't happen to be about Henry Ford, would it?
You guessed it, Uncle Dan. And I tell his story because I think it's a good example of what can be accomplished through determination, diligence, hard work, and faith in an ideal.
Important ingredients to success in any endeavor.
My story is in 2 parts and is called Henry Ford, the Natural-Born Mechanic. Most of us know of Henry Ford as a manufacturer of automobiles. Few of us think of him as a pioneer, but that is what he was, as you'll discover. Henry was born in Michigan on July 30th, 1863, the same day the Battle of Gettysburg ended. When Henry was 12, his mother died, leaving his father, William, with a farmhouse full of children and the problem of raising them alone.
That was wonderful, Pa! A machine that runs on the road all by itself!
Henry, I know you love machinery, but you're going to be a farmer. I'm buying more land each year so that you and your brother John can both have your own farms.
Pa, why can't you just give the farms to John? He likes farming and I don't. I want to be an engineer.
It takes a good education to be an engineer, Henry.
I'm good at arithmetic.
It takes more than that. Your teacher is always complaining that you don't pay enough attention. You go about building gadgets like that water wheel and dam that flooded Mr. Ward's potato patch.
Well, the school bell rang, and we were in such a hurry we forgot to tear down the dam. But the water wheel worked, Pa. I had it hitched to a coffee grinder, and we ground up small rocks and...
Enough of that for now. Yeah, here's Woodward Avenue. So watch out for number 173. That's where we deliver the wood.
Well, how'll do, Will? I see you got your little mechanic with you. How are you, Henry?
I'm fine, Mr. Flower. Can I go in the shop and watch the men work?
Sure enough, boy. Just stay out of the way and please don't ask so many questions this time.
I won't, sir. Thank you, Mr. Flower.
That boy. I don't know what I'm going to do with him, Jim. He hates farming. Oh, he does his chores. Helps me with the planting and sowing, but his heart isn't in it. All he thinks about are pulleys and gears.
Ah, Will, that boy has grit. Real grit. And maybe you ought to apprentice him to a good machinist when he's a bit older. He seems to have a natural talent for the work. With his determination, there's no telling how far he can go. I'd be glad to take him on myself in a few years.
He's going to be a farmer. You said you had my pump fixed.
Yep, it pulls good as new.
How'd you do it?
It was fairly simple. I heated the barrel in the forge and pulled it together with some iron bands. Then I just filled the crack with solder.
William Ford drove home thoughtfully. Henry, his head full of the wonders of Flower's machine shop, said little. They pulled into the barnyard just in time for supper. 9-year-old Margaret had taken over the care of the house after the death of their mother. Tonight she had a special surprise for Henry.
Attention, everyone! Tonight's a special occasion. Don't you remember what it is, Henry?
No, I guess not.
It's your birthday, you dolt! Henry's head is so full of gears and sprockets, he forgot his own birthday.
Oh, don't tease him, John. Go and help Margaret bring in the cake. Henry, here's a present I bought for you today. You're growing into a man. It's about time you had one.
Oh, Pa! A pocket watch! Just what I always wanted!
Henry, you've been sitting at that kitchen table for hours. What are you doing?
I'm taking my new watch apart, Pa.
What? I paid a whole $1 for that watch, and now you're taking it apart? You'll ruin it.
No, I won't, Pa. This is the 3rd time I've taken it apart and put it back together. And it works perfect each time. See? I made a tiny screwdriver out of a nail, and a pair of tweezers out of an old corset stay.
Jim Flower was right about you, boy. Well, you better quit fiddling with that watch and get to bed. We've got a whole potato patch to weed tomorrow.
Well, hello, Henry. My, you don't see a youngster for a while, and before you know it, he's all growed up. How old are you now?
I'm 16, Mr. Flower. I came to see if I could apprentice in your shop. I've left the farm and I want to be a machinist.
You're just in time, lad. We just lost a boy. Decided he wasn't cut out for the trade. Now, I'll take you on, but it don't pay much. Just $2.50 a week.
That'll be fine, Mr. Flower. What do you want me to do first?
Well, you go over and work with Tom on the 3rd bench. He's my best man, and he'll break you in right.
Although Henry received excellent training at Flower's shop, he stayed there only 9 months. His next job was with a large shipbuilding firm on the Detroit waterfront. He worked for the firm for several years, thoroughly learning his trade. Then, in the spring of 1882, Henry returned to his father's farm.
Mr. Gleason, that's a fine steam engine you have there.
Yeah, and for all the good it's doing me, I might as well not have it. The feller I hired to run it up and quit. Said he was afeard of the engine. So I got a problem, Henry. I contracted with your pa and a lot of other farmers to do their threshing, but I got no operator.
Well, she is a high-speed, quick, steaming little thing. Take a special touch to operate a mechanism like that.
Can you run this contraption? I'll pay you $3 a day, and there's enough work for all summer. What do you say?
I'd say you just hired yourself an operator, Mr. Gleason. I don't know why I let you talk me into coming to this dance, Edsel Redmond. You know how I am around girls.
Now, don't be bashful, Henry. You're 22 years old, a grown man. Well, there's your sister Margaret with some of her friends. Let's join them. Hello, ladies. May we join you?
Of course, Edsel. My, how did you ever get my brother to come tonight?
He kept at me until I finally gave in to shut him up.
Oh, now that you are here, there's someone I want you to meet. Clara, come over here a moment, will you? There's a young man here I'd like you to know.
Oh, no.
Let me introduce my brother.
Clara Bryant lived in nearby Greenfield Township. She was a small, pretty girl with dark hair and sparkling eyes, and Henry danced with her several times that evening. But it was nearly a year before he saw her again.
Hello, Miss Bryant. Would you care to dance?
Why, Henry Ford, I haven't seen you in ages. Yes, I'd love to.
You dance very well, Miss Bryant.
Thank you, kind sir. But please, Henry, call me Clara.
Clara, is your dance card filled? Because if it's not, I want you to write my name on every line.
What a brash young man you are, Henry Ford. Every dance?
Uh-huh.
How can I refuse an offer like that? Oh, it's a lovely evening, Henry. Everything smells so good in the spring, don't you think so?
Oh, yes, the spring. Yes.
Well, what ails you tonight? You're nervous as a cat at a dog convention.
Hold on a minute, Clara. Here, sit down on this log. I want to ask you something.
All right. There, I'm sitting. Now, what do you want to ask me?
You know I love you. Will you marry me?
Yes, I will, my darling. I will.
Happy that Henry was at last going to settle down, his father gave him 40 acres of timbered land, and Henry spent several years cutting and selling lumber. The best boards he kept for himself, and soon after their wedding on April 11, 1888, he began building their new house, designed by Clara herself. In spite of his attempts at farming, it was his machines Henry continued to love. For 2 summers, he traveled through the countryside repairing engines for the Buckeye Harvester Company. On one of his trips into Detroit, Henry examined the Silent Otto, an internal combustion engine developed by the German Nicholas August Otto. Henry rushed home to tell Clara.
Clara, have you got a piece of paper? Something I can draw on. I want to show you something.
Here's the back of this sheet music. What are you so excited about?
The Silent Otto.
The silent what?
Otto, the Silent Otto, a new gas-powered internal combustion engine.
Oh, I should have known.
Anyway, I have an idea. I think I can mount an engine like that on a wheel and make a self-propelled carriage. See, I've sketched it here, huh? It's a great idea. Only one thing.
What's that?
I need to learn more about electricity. It's used for the firing cycle of the engine. Clara, where are you?
Here I am, dear. What on earth is the matter?
I've taken a job as night engineer with the Edison Illuminating Company in Detroit. We'll have to move to town.
To town?
Don't you see? It'll give me the daytime to work on my self-propelled carriage and a chance to learn about electricity.
In September 1891, Henry and Clara left the new house in the country and moved to Detroit. 2 years and 7 moves later, in December of 1893, they moved into a 2-family house on 58 Bagley Street. Henry used some spare time and space at the power station to build a little workshop for his own mechanical experiments. On Christmas Eve, Henry rushed home and into the kitchen carrying an engine in his arms.
What do you intend to do with that thing, Henry Ford?
I need to try out my new engine. I'll just clamp it here to the kitchen sink, and we'll use the house current as the spark.
But I was just getting the Christmas turkey ready.
Never mind that now. I want you to help me. Take this oil can and feed the intake valve drop by drop. Now, careful now. I'll turn the flywheel.
Will it explode?
Absolutely not. Now, get ready. I'm going to touch the electric wire to the spark plug.
Oh, my! Will it catch fire?
Don't be frightened. Look, it runs perfectly. It works!
For a moment, I thought my whole kitchen would go up in flames. Now, is this the engine you'll use in your horseless carriage?
Oh, no. This is only a model. The motor that I'll use for my automobile will be much larger. I'll start on that tonight.
But, Henry, it's Christmas Eve.
Soon after the test in Clara's kitchen, activities were shifted from the power station workshop to a brick shed behind the Ford's house. Here, Henry began building the motor he'd use to propel his auto. Night after night, the lights in the little brick building burned long after midnight. Helping were Ed Huff and Jim Bishop, who worked with Henry at the Edison Company. Slowly, painfully, the work progressed. Finally, in the wee hours of the morning of June 4th, Henry's car was finished, sitting in the little brick shed on its 28-inch bicycle wheels.
I'm ready, Jim! Open the door! You might as well shut off the motor, Henry.
Why, for Pete's sake?
Because the door is too small or the carriage is too big. Take your choice.
Oh, Henry, what do you do?
Don't worry. I'll fix that door, Clara. Jim, hand me that axe. There. Now that door is big enough. Let's push her out, Jim.
Have you got a good hold of the tiller, Henry? Good. I'll ride ahead on my bicycle to make sure the way is clear.
Okay, here I go!
2 o'clock in the morning, the little car sputtered along Washington Boulevard. Suddenly it stopped, right in front of the Cadillac Hotel. A spring had broken. A group of revelers came out to laugh.
What kind of a contraption is that? It's one of them crazy horseless carriages. Hey, mister, I got my horse over there. I can give you a tow.
Mister! You with the horse!
Yeah, what do you want?
I'm gonna sell you one of these contraptions someday!
Fat chance, mister. Fat chance.
With a new valve stem, nut, and spring, Henry Ford and Jim Bishop soon had the tiny car running again. Henry drove it back to the brick shed and snatched a few hours of sleep. The next day, he hired a bricklayer to repair the damaged building, making sure this time that the door was left large enough. In the afternoon, he handed Clara, holding baby Edsel, up into the buggy seat and proudly took them for a ride. For the next few weeks, Henry tended to his job at the Edison Company. In August, he accompanied his boss, Alex Dow, to New York for a convention of illuminating companies.
The future of the electric automobile looks very promising. Why, there must be as many as 20 electric cars running on the streets of New York right now.
Well, here's a young man who's made a car that runs on gas.
Oh, that sounds interesting. Well, how does it run, Mr.
The name's Ford, Mr. Edison, sir. Henry Ford. Well, the gasoline is ignited by sparks in the piston chamber. Now, the resulting explosions push the pistons rapidly back and forth. This, in turn, activates the drive shaft.
Can you sketch out the basic design so I can understand it better?
Oh, sure. I'll be happy to sketch out the details for you. Hand me that menu, please. Oh, thank you. Now, the pistons are like so, huh?
Yeah.
And the spark is applied here to the gas-air mixture. See?
Henry sketched the plan for his automobile on the back of the menu, explaining as he drew. When he'd finished, Thomas Edison asked some astute questions.
What do you think of the battery-powered car, Mr. Ford? Electricity seems to be the wave of the future.
Not for automobiles, Mr. Edison. Batteries are too big and they have to be recharged too often. And steam is really out of the picture, too. No, sir. The gasoline engine is the only way to go.
Young man, you have it. Your car doesn't have to carry coal and water for steam, and you don't have to be near a place to recharge your batteries. Your unit carries its own fuel. Oh, keep at it, young man, keep at it.
Henry, do sit down and stop your pacing. You've wakened Edsel.
I tell you, Clara, Thomas Edison is the greatest man of our century. I got a picture of him with my new camera. He was taking a nap. I'll send him a print when I get the negative developed.
Won't he be angry at such a photo?
No, not at all. He has a wonderful sense of humor, and he takes naps all the time. Oh, by the way, I sold my horseless carriage to Charlie Ainsley for $200.
But Henry, you love that little car. You put so much time and effort into it.
It's time to go on. The next car I build will be bigger and better and a lot faster.
This car is sure an improvement over the first one.
It's got to be good if I want to sell it.
Whoa, back up there, Henry Ford. Others have tried that, and a lot of them have gone broke.
That's why I have got to get solid financing, and to do that, I must have a great car. A lot of guys are getting into the business. Ransom Olds and Alex Winton, just to name two. Pretty soon, there will be automobiles all over the place. Only the builder with a good, solid car and good, solid money behind him will survive. Do I understand you right, Mr. Murphy? You're challenging me to drive from Detroit to Farmington to Pontiac and back to Detroit?
That's right.
Why, that's over 60 miles.
That it is. And furthermore, I'm going to go along. You're looking for financial backing?
Yes, sir.
Well then, I'm going on this drive to see how well this machine of yours works. If it can make that trip on existing roads without a breakdown, I think it has some chance of commercial success.
I'll be back to see you, Mr. Murphy, just as soon as I have the car ready. How are we doing?
I'm keeping a careful log of this trip, the amount of fuel used, the condition of the roads, and how the car performs. And so far, it looks good.
Here we are, back home and no breakdowns. What do you think, Mr. Murphy?
Well, now we will organize a company.
Mayor William Maybury was more than a little interested in Ford's new car, too. Henry took him for a ride around Detroit, and the mayor issued a paper authorizing him to drive on the city streets. This was the first driver's license in the United States. On August 5, 1899, William Murphy, Mayor Maybury, and about a dozen other businessmen organized the Detroit Automobile Company to manufacture the cars that Henry Ford designed. This was the first automobile manufacturing company established in Detroit. It produced about a dozen cars in 1900, and then in November of that year was dissolved after suffering a loss of $86,000.
Don't take it too hard, Henry. Lots of men fail their first try at business. You're a perfectionist, that's your trouble.
I have to be. Do you know there are over 57 companies making cars in the United States at the present time?
Phew. Before you know it, there will be automobiles all over the place. People will be able to travel anywhere.
No, they won't. Not without better roads. You know, I've been thinking the best way to get back into production, and I've come up with a plan.
Oh, what's that?
I'm going to build a race car. Look at the publicity Winton got when he raced that Frenchman last year. And he didn't even win. I'm going to build a car that will beat the pants off anything Winton can put on the road.
Alexander Winton's car boasted a motor of 40 horsepower. Henry Ford's car sported a two-cylinder engine with only 26 horsepower. The secret of Henry's car was its simplicity. The race was planned for October 10, 1901, on a dirt track that ran along the Detroit River. The grandstand was full of people, including Clara and little Edsel, as the drivers set their racers to the starting line. Henry decided to drive the car himself, with Ed Huff acting as ballast.
Look, Mama! There's Papa down there in his car! Why is Mr. Huff standing on the running board?
Mr. Huff is the ballast rider, Edsel. You see, when your papa goes around a curve real fast, Mr. Huff will hang way up to balance the auto so it won't tip over.
There they go! Oh no! Mr. Winton's way out in front! Is Papa gonna lose the race?
Not a bit of it. They have a long way to go. It's a 10-mile race. Here they come around the track again. Look, Edsel! Your pup is gaining!
Uh-oh, Winton's in trouble. His car's starting to smoke. He's slowing down.
Look, Mama, look! Papa's passing Mr. Winton! He's gonna win! Yay!
Mr. Ford, can I talk to you a minute?
Sure, as long as you're not a bill collector.
No, I'm not one of those. I saw you race against Winton last October. I was in the bicycle race just before yours.
Of course, you're Tom Cooper, the famous bike racer. I thought I recognized your face. It's an honor to know you, sir. Didn't you race that Oldfield fellow that day?
Yes, and he beat me by 10 lengths. But I'm afraid that bike racing in this country is over. People aren't interested in it anymore since automobile racing caught their fancy. That's why I'm here.
I don't understand.
I want you to build 2 race cars. One for you and the other for me. I want to get into the car racing business.
Cooper financed the cars. Henry designed and built them. By the spring of 1902, the cars were complete. And and monsters they turned out to be. Cooper named his the Arrow after a famous high-speed train, and Henry called his 999 for a well-known locomotive. There was only one problem with the cars. They were just too fast and powerful. Neither Ford nor Cooper felt competent enough to drive them.
Will you listen to that, Tom? Woo! Going over Niagara Falls would be a pastime compared to driving one of our racers at full speed.
Yeah, I'll go along with that.
But we've got to find a driver. Someone who's crazy enough to risk his neck in one of those two monsters.
I think I know just the feller we need. Barney Oldfield is our man. There is nothing too fast for him. He lives in Salt Lake City. I'll send him a telegram today.
It didn't take you long to get here from Salt Lake City, Mr. Oldfield.
Hey, just call me Barney. Cooper here said you had an interesting proposition for me. Telegram said something like be the fastest man on wheels.
We've got a couple of race cars that are the fastest things ever made, Barney. We need a daredevil for a driver, and that's you, old friend.
Well, that's just fine with me, gentlemen. There's just one thing.
What's that?
I don't know how to drive.
Remember, Barney, of the four other cars in this race, Winton is the fellow we must beat.
Yeah, I know, Henry. Don't worry. Winton'll eat my dust.
Don't be foolhardy, Barney. This car's never been driven at full speed. We don't know what she'll do.
Well, you'll find out today, Coop. Today, the 999 goes with everything she's got. Oh, gotta go, boys. The starter's calling.
Winton's bullet is ahead by a car's length. That's it, Barney. Hug the fence. Get on the inside.
What's the matter with Winton's car? It's sputtering. He's dropping back.
999 is gaining. She's passing the bullet. Come on, Barney. Come on.
The only other driver now with a chance is Shanks. Here comes Barney, way ahead of the other cars. Across the finish line. We've won, Coop. We've won.
The victory launched Barney Oldfield as the most acclaimed race driver in America. The publicity pushed Ford's name into the headlines as the foremost builder of automobiles. It brought Henry to the attention of Alex Malcolmson, a prosperous wood and coal dealer in Detroit. Malcolmson was convinced there was money to be made in the manufacture of horseless carriages.
Mr. Ford, I witnessed the race at Grosse Pointe. That's quite a car Oldfield drove.
Thank you, Mr. Malcolmson. Barney averaged almost 60 miles an hour during that 10-mile race. That is the fastest any human has ever gone.
Sir, if you can build a car like that, surely you can design a good passenger car.
I intend to do just that. A car both sturdy and inexpensive.
And reliable? What the people really need is a reliable car, a mechanically sound automobile.
I proved I could do that in the first race against Winton. Reliability won that race.
Yes, I remember.
And the second race, with the 999, reliability won that too. I had a good engineer by the name of Harold Wills working with me on that one. He's still with me. In fact, we're working on a new idea for the cylinders. We're going to mount them vertically instead of horizontal. We think that'll make a better motor.
Then I propose we form a company to build cars.
That would be fine with me. But, sir, there is more to manufacturing automobiles than design. We must think of financing, advertising, sales.
I have just the man to handle all that. His name is James Cousins, my clerk. I suggest we all get together for a talk. Look this thing over carefully before we jump in.
I like the way you think, Mr. Malcolmson. Let's have that meeting as soon as possible.
Early in 1903, the company began to take shape. It was decided the Ford and Malcolmson partnership would be called the Ford Motor Company.
So what do you think of that, Mr. Harold Wills? The Ford Motor Company.
Has a good ring to it, Henry. Has a good ring.
I thought so, too. Now we need to design some kind of trademark emblem for it. Something unique. Tell you what, you're a draftsman. Why don't you see what you can come up with?
Well, I could work on it. You know, when I was a boy, I used to earn pocket money printing calling cards. I used a home printing set. I may still have some of the type laying around. Give me a few days. I'll see what I can find.
Harold, how's the new block coming?
On schedule, I'd say.
That's good. Could be only a matter of weeks, and we'll need to begin production of that motor.
Well, Henry, it'd help if at some point we could freeze the design. Every time you make a design change, we lose more time.
Yes, I know, but we have to have the best, most reliable, and affordable product on the market. Let me know if you need anything. Now, I'm going to go...
There is something here I think you might want to see.
Oh, what's that?
Over here on my desk. I dug around in my attic and found some of that type I used to make calling cards. See, here's a sample of it. As you can see, it's a kind of a flowing script.
That capital F in Ford has a particular flow to it. Looks like the F in my own signature. That's it. We've got our trademark emblem.
And that's how the trademark that came to be recognized the world over was born. With the encouragement of Alex Malcolmson and under the direction of his clerk, James Cousins, the investors and their money slowly came forward to finance the new company.
Okay, Mr. Cousins, give us your report.
Now, let me explain the financial structure to you. John Gray, the banker, will invest $10,500 for 105 shares in the company. Albert Sterlow is kicking in $5,000, as is Vernon Fry. The lawyers Anderson and Rackham will each have 50 shares. I'll be good for 25 shares, and Woodall, one of the bookkeepers, will buy 10 shares.
What about the Dodge brothers? They seem interested in coming in with us.
They will take 50 shares each. However, they want the contract to build our chassis, motors, and gearboxes.
That's fine with me. The Dodge brothers are good machinists. I've got to hand it to you, James. You've done a really great job.
Well, thank you, Henry. Thank you.
On June 16, 1903, papers of incorporation were filed in the state capital, Lansing, Michigan. The Ford Motor Company was now officially in business. The Model A, as their new design was called, would be assembled a little east of Detroit in a workshop on Mack Street. In those days, automobile makers designed, assembled, and marketed cars, but contracted out the manufacturing of the parts. The C.R. Wilson Carriage Company would make the wooden body shells and leather upholstery, and a couple of red-haired brothers, John F. and Horace E. Dodge, were to supply the mechanical parts for Henry's Model A. James Cousins worked out the costs.
Gentlemen, I have carefully investigated the cost of building our car. I believe these figures to be accurate and realistic.
Let's hear it, James.
The price of motors, transmissions, and chassis from the Dodge brothers comes to $250. The C.R. Wilson bodies, wheels, and miscellaneous parts come to $134. I calculate labor costs to be $20 in sales, advertising, and salaries, $150, give or take a few dollars. All this adds up to $554. Now, with a selling price of $750, that leaves a profit of $196 per car.
And we'll have the best car for the money on the road. Yes, we will. We'll do it!
You've got a dozen men working out in the plant, Henry. I didn't think you'd need that many to start.
I need them or I wouldn't have hired them, James.
Well, we're paying them pretty good money, $1.50 a day. Now make sure you get a full 10 hours work a day out of them.
Cousins, you run the office and sell the cars. Leave the building of them to me. James, Harold, Wills, and I both think we can make our cars a little better if we would just...
No! The car is fine the way it is, Henry. Leave it alone.
I thought we all wanted the best possible car we could make.
We do, Henry, but the changes have to stop.
This is my car, and I'll make whatever changes I want in it.
It's not your car. It belongs to all of us. Now, in order to sell our cars at a profit, we need to manufacture them in volume. That means no delays for changing the design. Gentlemen, our situation grows more precarious every day.
You're referring to our finances, I suppose?
Of course, we knew when we started there'd be expenses. In fact, you calculated them quite carefully, if I remember correctly.
Yes, Alex, and my calculations have proven accurate. The cars are costing exactly as I figured.
Then what's the problem?
Sales, gentlemen, we have no sales. We're almost 3 weeks into production without even one car sold.
Some of the shareholders will be making good on their pledges in the coming weeks. That has to help.
If something doesn't help, and soon, gentlemen, we'll be broke.
What's our situation now, James?
Worse. We've paid the Dodge brothers $10,000, $640 to the Hartford Rubber Company, plus more to Western Union. Then there are blueprints, office furniture, and the list goes on.
What's our balance?
We have less than $230 in our account. We've been in business only 4 weeks, and we're virtually broke.
We produce a good car. They will sell. The Model A has a good engine, and the price is right.
Yes, it is a good car. Good enough, Henry, to freeze the design. Every time you make a design change, we lose time in production, and the costs go up.
But you know
and
that the
if and when these cars start to sell, we can't stop assembly every few days for some so-called improvement.
I told you before, and I'm telling you again, cousins, I build the cars, and your job is to sell them. Now, if you think these improvements, which...
Gentlemen, this just arrived in the morning's mail. I thought it might be of some interest to you. It's from a Dr. Pfennig in Chicago.
Here, let me see that. Ha! What'd I tell you? Here it is, our first sale!
Let me see. And he paid the full cash price.
That first sale was to a dentist in Chicago, and it had come just in time. In a few weeks, 4 more cars had been sold, and under the firm direction of James Cousins, the sales continued to grow.
Morning, Henry.
Morning.
I've notified the railroad. We'll load first thing tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow, huh?
Yes. The cars came off the assembly floor yesterday. We need to ship them as soon as possible.
Maybe you'd better notify the railroad to expect a few days' delay.
Delay? Why?
Because I said so.
That's not good enough.
All right. Wills and I have a few modifications to make.
No.
I'm the car builder around here, and I say
And I'm responsible for sales. That's our first consignment of cars, and they are going out on schedule.
James, I need to see you a minute.
Can't right now, Alex. I'm on my way to the railroad with this shipment of cars.
Oh, can't someone else deliver them?
No. Henry wants to hold back this shipment for design changes. I'm the only one I trust to see to it that this consignment leaves here as scheduled. I'm personally going down to nail shut the doors of the freight cars. Stop shipping and we go bankrupt.
By the following spring of 1904, they had met their target of 650 cars and had made a profit of almost $100,000. In 1905, business was so good the company moved into a new factory on Piquette Avenue, a building 10 times bigger than the Mack Street plant. 300 men were employed turning out 25 cars a day.
But Henry, 25 cars a day is nothing to be sneezed at.
It's not good enough, Harold, because that means only a comparatively small number of people can drive a car, and my idea is to make a reliable car cheap enough so that any man making a good salary can own one.
You can increase volume just by hiring more men, but that alone won't reduce the number of man-hours on each car, and until we can find a way to do that, we can't reduce our prices.
Right. To do that, we have to control the entire manufacturing process.
You mean bring everything into our plant?
Right. The proper system, as I have it in mind, is to get the cars to the multitude. We have to control the whole process if we're going to be able to do that.
On November 22, 1905, the Ford Manufacturing Company was incorporated to supply the Ford Motor Company with engines, gears, and other automobile parts. Henry Ford was taking the first steps toward the realization of his goal, to make a car for the multitude.
Harold, put down that wrench and come over here.
What's on your mind?
I've hired Charles Sorensen here to make patterns for us. You know how I hate using blueprints, and Charlie can turn those drawings into something three-dimensional I can understand.
Welcome aboard, Charles.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to working with both of you.
Well, the first thing you could do is show those carpenters yonder how you want your shop put together.
Exactly what I had in mind. I'll be there if you need me.
Good man, that Sorensen. What have you learned about that light, tough piece of steel I gave you?
Well, that valve stem strip from the French racing car?
Uh-huh.
It's a vanadium alloy.
Vanadium?
And nobody in America makes it. It requires a furnace heat of 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. We don't have any furnaces hot enough.
We have to have that steel. It'll make our cars a lot stronger, lighter, and faster. I'll find a foundry somewhere in the States that'll make that alloy for us. We've got it.
We've got what?
Our steel, our vanadium steel. I found a steel company in Canton, Ohio that can make it. Here's a sample.
Can they supply all we're going to need?
I think so. Of course, it'll be a few months before they're into regular production.
We'll use it just as soon as we can get it.
Come in.
Henry, I know it's a bit late, but
That's all right. Sit down. What's on your mind?
I've been checking production costs on the Model N.
And they're costing us more to build than we estimated, right?
By a substantial margin.
I suspected that. We announced we'd put the car on the market for $450.
I know, but we can't do it. I doubt we can even stay below $550.
What have we got to sell them for, James?
I'm suggesting $600.
At that, it's still a better bargain than anything else on the market.
Uh-huh.
But there has to be a way, some way to increase production efficiency. Only then can we bring the price down to the level people can afford.
We're already using the most efficient methods available. We've added more workstations, more machines, so each man has fewer operations to perform.
Yes, I know, and every modern factory in America is now doing the same. But it's just not smooth enough, production-wise, to have teams of mechanics building a motor on a stationary jig or cradle, and then when it's finished, transporting it to the next station for the next mechanics to swarm around it, adding axles and wheels, all of that. Finally, roll to the next stop for bodies and seats. There has to be a better way.
One cold winter morning, as Charles Sorensen arrived for work in his pattern-making department.
Come with me, Charlie. I want to show you something.
Where are we headed, Henry?
You know the unused space upstairs here at the end of the building?
Next to the assembly area?
Uh-huh. I have plans for that. Some remodeling. Here. I'd like to have a room finished off right here in this space. Put up a wall with a door in it big enough for a car to go in and out. Get a good lock for the door. We're going to start a completely new job.
When the room was completed, Henry Ford, Charles Sorensen, a young Hungarian engineer named Joseph Galam, and a few other chosen individuals began working long hours on the completely new job.
Our experience in the use of vanadium and heat-treated steels in the Model N has taught us its value in building lighter, stronger, faster cars. We'll plan on using more of it in this model. The Model N's motor was good, but for this new model, I have a completely new plan. Instead of casting each cylinder separately and then bolting them together, we'll cast all four in one block. We'll slice the block off across the top and bottom. That way, everything can easily be machined to close tolerances, and we'll have a bolt-down head.
The pace quickened. The team worked long hours. Soon they were working until 10 or 11 every night. More than a year passed. Finally, the new model was ready.
We'll call this the Model T.
Thus was born one of the world's most popular early cars. When the Model T went on the market in October 1908, orders flooded in, and by the end of the winter, the company had to announce they couldn't take any more. They had enough orders to last until the next August. By the end of September, they had sold 10,000 cars. The future never looked better until one morning.
Henry, we've got trouble, big trouble.
Calm down, James. We've had trouble before.
Not like this. Selden and his association of licensed automobile manufacturers seem to have won their suit against us for patent infringement. Judge Huff has upheld the Selden patent.
That's ridiculous, and they know it. The Selden patent doesn't cover any practicable machine. Why, no practicable machine can be made from it and never was.
Nevertheless, if the decision holds, we'll have to pay millions of dollars in back royalties. They have all our old competitors, Winton, Olds, and all the others on their side, you know.
They've been trying for years to make trouble for us. We'll fight them all the way to the Supreme Court if necessary. In fact, I want you to telegraph all our dealers. Tell them we will fight to the finish!
And fight he did. Among other things, Henry put up bonds totaling $12 million to indemnify any Ford dealer or customer who might be prosecuted by Selden and his association.
What did I tell you, Jake? That Ford's a real scrapper.
What's he done now?
He's taken on the whole Automobile Manufacturers Association all by himself.
Uh-huh. Maybe he's bit off more than he can chew.
Oh, old Henry'll win, I tell you. Listen to what it says here in the Detroit paper. Now, here's a man for you, a man of backbone. As a human figure, he presents a spectacle to win the applause of all men with red blood. For this world dearly loves the fighting man. What do you think of that?
One thing you can say, he makes a real good car. Fact is, I've been thinking about buying me one of them T models myself.
The case went to the appeals court, and on January 9th, 1911, the court ruled in favor of Henry Ford. The Association of Licensed Automobile Manufacturers was disbanded, and each car manufacturer was free to pursue his own destiny. By now, the Ford Motor Company had moved into their new and greatly expanded factory in Highland Park. Here, Henry would pursue his dream of making a car the people could afford.
James, Charlie Sorensen, and I have come up with an idea that will revolutionize the auto industry.
Let's hear it.
Charlie, you can explain it better than I can. You tell him what we have in mind.
Well, you know how our vehicles are assembled now. A crew works on one car till it's completed. We feel that it would be much more efficient to have the chassis move along a conveyor belt.
Teams of men will stand along this waist-high conveyor, each man with a specific job. Each team would put on a single part as the chassis moves past them. One crew would be responsible for the bumpers, another for the mudguards, the running boards, and still another for the headlights, and so forth, until the finished car is driven off the end of the assembly line.
Everything depends on interchangeable parts, James. Each piece is manufactured in a jig, so it's perfectly interchangeable with any other piece manufactured in that jig. What do you think?
I love the idea. When can we start?
The assembly line was gradually installed, and within a year, the whole factory became a maze of moving parts delivered to the men as they stood at the conveyor. Bolts, nuts, doors, windows, and engine sections converged on the central line, where the components evolved into finished automobiles.
The assembly line is working beautifully, Henry.
Yes, and it will get better still. A car that used to take more than 12 hours to build is reduced to less than 6 hours.
By January 1914, the Highland Park plant was turning out a new Model T every 93 minutes. And almost as quickly as the cars rolled off the line, they were sold. By 1917, Ford was selling more than 500,000 cars annually. As the factory output rose, the cost of making the Model T came down, and the company passed along the savings to its customers.
Woohoo! What do you think of her, Mabel? Ain't she a beauty? Ain't no car like the Model T.
Hadn't you better slow down a bit, Elmer? We must be going 20 miles an hour.
Huh. You ain't seen nothing yet. I've had this Tin Lizzie up to 45, and I bet she'll go even faster.
Model T owners seemed to develop an affection for their cars, and the Tin Lizzie, as it was called, became a national craze. Yes, with his development of the moving assembly line, Henry Ford was able to realize his dream of a car for the multitude. Transportation was revolutionized,